Hello and welcome to the Retirement Planning Podcast, your trusted source for navigating the path to a secure retirement. Your host and guide on this journey towards financial peace of mind is Darren McComas. On this show, we'll delve into everything you need to know about retirement planning, from investment strategies and risk management to maximizing your Social Security benefits and crafting a resilient financial plan using the bucket plan financial process. Join me as we bring you insights from top financial experts, share stories of successful retirement journeys, and provide practical tips to help you build and preserve your wealth. Let's embark on this adventure together as we strive towards a future where retirement isn't just a dream, but a well-planned reality.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Retirement Planning Podcast. I'm Darren McComas.
And I'm Jason Fox.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. This is episode 10. Topic of today's episode is about risk and how fast is your portfolio speeding along. So we're going to dig into really how much risk you're taking on with your portfolio, how much risk you should be taking on with your portfolio, and there's some more timely topics with the current market environment that we're in right now. So I think it's going to be a great episode. It'll make you definitely think a little bit about what you own and why you own it. So
absolutely.
Before we dive into all that fun stuff, Jason, tell us a little bit. What do you have new and exciting going on?
My wife and daughter got back from their trip to see my wife's parents not long ago, and that was in China, so they had to adjust with the jet lag and all that. But that's coming around, and so we like to hike, so we get out on the weekends here in Spokane. There's some beautiful trails, and so we've been doing that and just enjoying this beautiful weather that we have this time of year.
About time. Spring has finally arrived. And, jet lag. I mean, I complain when I have jet lag going from the East Coast back to the West Coast, 3-hour time difference. But man, going from China.
It is a completely different thing for sure. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they're back safe and sound. And
absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah. For me, we're just kind of winding down our baseball season. I'm coaching my two boys on their travel baseball team. We have a tournament this weekend. So that'll be a lot of fun. It's called Best in the Northwest.
Okay.
I don't know how our team got invited to this because we're definitely not one of the top tier teams, but we're having a lot of fun.
Well, you've won a few games anyway, right?
A few. Yes, a few. But I'm so looking forward to summer. It's right around the corner. We love going camping.
Yes.
Boating and just getting out in the sunshine. And, we live in the Pacific Northwest and man, we have some of the best outdoor, hiking, boating, just getting outside on these beautiful.
Well, and this time of year is, this is the reason to live in the Northwest, right? Because it's, 3 months of just perfect weather.
Yeah. Makes you remember December, January, February when it's cold, gray and gloomy, like you really appreciate
absolutely this
time we're in. So let's dive right into today's episode. And really it's about chasing returns in retirement. I say this in our seminars a lot, and I say it on our webinars. When you head into retirement, it's really about shifting your mindset. You might have worked 30, 40 years, and you've been in that accumulation mode, contributing to that 401k, being more risk tolerant and trying to get growth in that portfolio, right? We're in that accumulation phase.
Right.
But then one day we wake up, we're not working anymore. We're not contributing to the 401k. We're retired. And every day in retirement, they say is like Saturday, right? And now you're deaccumulating.
Right. And it's a complete mind shifting of the mind from the time we're kids, we're taught, put money in the piggy bank, right? Yeah. Put money in the 401k, sock it away, let it accumulate, just like you're saying. But then, it's a complete, changing of what you're thinking about from going from that, I'm rapidly down the highway, going 70 miles down the highway, and then you've got to adjust, right? And some people, a lot of clients we have come in don't quite understand what that adjustment needs to look like.
Right. And I will say this, the people that we work with and most people we talk to, they don't want to change their lifestyle just because they retired. They want to, in fact, probably
they want to
do more traveling and do more things, spend more money, especially in those go-go years of retirement.
Well, when every day is Saturday, of course, right? Like you want to be going out and enjoying your Saturday, right?
Yeah, it's a different season, but even though you're doing those things that you've put off for 30, 40 years, like traveling and hobbies and all those fun things. You got to make that nest egg last your entire lifetime. I know for our clients, that's usually one of their top concerns. Do I have enough to retire and not run out of money?
Absolutely. Number one concern, I would say, consistently.
So I think one of the primary goals and duties for us as fiduciary financial advisors is to make sure our clients have the proper allocations in their portfolios and really make sure that we're matching it up with their risk tolerance.
Absolutely.
So we use a program in this office it used to be called Riskalyze. Now it's called Nitrogen, but it's a fabulous software tool that quantifies a person's risk in their portfolio. And it gives you an exact number. And what's nice about that is it's easy to relate to because they put it in terms of like miles per hour,
right?
Which we've all driven a car, been in a car, driving down the freeway at 70, 75 miles an hour. And, that's easy to understand. But when you look at your portfolio in retirement, in my opinion, you're not on the freeway anymore in retirement, right? You're kind of more in that residential area. And if your portfolio is zipping along at 70, 75 miles an hour, taking on a lot of risks, chasing returns, while you're taking income from that portfolio, and then we have, heaven forbid, a 2008 kind of financial crisis and the market crashes, are you going to have enough money to make it?
Well, right. And then it brings in something we call the sequence of returns risk, which I think we're going to get into a little bit more depth later on, but it can really torpedo somebody's retirement depending on what happens in those first few years of retirement.
Yeah, exactly. And, so much about our job as advisors is coaching our clients through these emotional times when the market is volatile and it's crashing like we saw earlier this spring. And then also managing the emotions when the market is solid. It's in a bull market mode month after month or for a few years, like we saw with 2023 and 2024, where the markets were very solid. That, I think this graphic is we're going to put it up here for those watching on YouTube, but this is from Carl Richards and the behavior gap. But this is exactly what I see when talking with people. We have a great market run. The market is getting towards the top. It's overbought. And that's when people get greedy. The studies have shown that people are more likely to take on risk after a good stretch in the market, probably at the worst time, because markets do what markets do. They're cyclical.
They go in cycles or waves, depending on how you want to look at it, right? And when it's at the top, just like you're talking about, that people are like, oh, I don't want to miss out, right? It's that FOMO, right?
They're at that barbecue and their friend bought this stock and that stock, and they're like, oh, he's making 15%. My portfolio is making 4 or 5.
Right.
And then they want to come in and buy, or up their risk with all of their retirement nest egg and they buy in at the top, and then the markets crash and they get scared. And then they sell towards the bottom, right? And then they're sitting in cash and they miss the recovery. And then again, by the time they feel confident again, they buy in at the next top.
Yeah. Not
that until you're broke.
Yeah. That's not quite understanding how the markets work, right? Yeah. And, they go through a fairly logical and predetermined range when it's doing that, right?
Right.
Even this last spring, when the markets were down, we had, some prospective clients coming in saying, should I get out? Should I go to cash? And not understanding that we're still within a very normal range or pullback within the market. And there's really no reason to panic in a situation like that.
Yeah, you shouldn't panic if you have a plan, right?
Well, correct.
If you have a strategy. And that's what a lot of people, I think, are lacking is they really don't have a strategy. They just are maybe in a traditional 60-40 portfolio, or maybe they're really stock heavy, chasing returns. They just are kind of winging it. And we think there's a lot of exposure to this topic, right, that you alluded to earlier, sequence of return risk. If you're chasing returns in retirement and you have a very equity heavy portfolio, you go to retire, now you're taking distributions out of those accounts to live off of. You expose yourself to a huge amount of sequence of return risk, which is basically, if I boiled it down simply, if the markets have a few good years early on in your retirement, you might end up in the penthouse, right? And live in a great retirement. But on the other hand, those first few years in retirement, while you're taking distributions, if the market is negative, maybe back-to-back years, minus 10, minus 20%, it could be detrimental and you might end up in the poorhouse.
Yeah, because essentially you're having to sell more of your portfolio, more stock, in order to raise the same amount of money, right? When the stocks are high, you can sell, whatever percentage to generate that, $5,000 a month you need. Yep. But when it goes down, you have to sell more stock in order to generate that same $5,000.
Yeah, leaving you a lot less soldiers on that battlefield to work with, right? And so why leave retirement to chance? A flip of the coin. Are you going to be lucky your first few years in retirement, or are you going to be unlucky and sabotage your own retirement?
And if you have a plan, you don't have to roll the dice, right? And retirement's way too important to be rolling the dice.
Yeah. And so we're going to ask this question. How much risk do you have? Do you know, if we were to ask you today, you're sitting at your table and ask you, how much risk are you taking on? Do you know? And for a lot of people we talk with, they have no idea. Well, I think I'm kind of conservative, or my advisor says I'm conservative, but they really don't know. They don't have a quantifiable way to do that. It's more just kind of fairy dust and hopes and dreams.
But or just going on the word and trust of their advisor, which, there's a lot of great advisors out there and they're great people, but we believe that the client should have an idea of what their risk score is and understand what their plan is, right?
Yeah. And that's where we offer this completely free for people that we're meeting with. Hey, we'll do a risk analysis on your portfolio. We import their holdings into Nitrogen, and it comes out and it quantifies their risk number. And for a lot of people, they're shocked. Wow, I thought I was conservative. And we show them, well, you're way more aggressive than what we would consider conservative in this office. And it's just great because they actually get a number. And then what we can do, Nitrogen also has some risk questionnaires that can walk people through. So you can get your risk number and you can compare and contrast. It's your risk tolerance. Does it match your portfolio? A lot of times there's a big disconnect there.
Right. Absolutely.
So, do you know what you own is one important thing, how much risk you're taking on, but, do you know why you own what you own? What's the purpose? What if you're in a kind of a cookie cutter portfolio, maybe it's a 60-40 portfolio or a balanced 50-50 portfolio. What's the purpose of owning that? Is it just because you're in retirement now and that's what everyone does, or?
Yeah. Are you just following the herd, right? Are you just, walking along with the crowd, doing that because everyone else is doing it? Or are you, kind of stepping back, taking a look at your situation and coming up with a plan alongside an expert and then doing maybe something a little different, but that actually gets you where you want to be faster and with more security?
Yeah. And we always ask people, do you think you're well diversified? And a lot of times they say, yeah, I think I'm well diversified. And when we do the risk analysis using Nitrogen, we can show you exactly how much correlation you have in your portfolio. And you might have 15 different mutual funds or exchange traded funds, and they all have different names and they all sound fancy, like large cap growth and small cap this. But when we pull back the covers, so to speak, or open the hood up, we look at the engine, you can see exactly how those funds, how much correlation. Mutual funds own stocks typically within the funds. And if you have two large cap funds, there's chances are they own
a lot of correlation, most likely.
They own the same stocks within them, even though they have different.
It actually reminds me of, we had a client in just this last week, and she had 3 different accounts. She's done a great job of accumulating her nest egg. But when we looked at the accounts and went through the same process, she owned essentially the same thing in all 3 accounts.
Yep. Yeah, and same stocks in all 3 accounts. And they were all different. One was a pre-tax account, one was a tax-free Roth account, and one was a brokerage account. So, in us, you should be well diversified across time horizons.
Yes.
Like we use the bucket plan system. So the now, the soon, and the later buckets.
Right.
You should also be diversified, with asset classes within those buckets, and then tax exposure. You probably don't want to own the same things in a pre-tax account as you would a taxable brokerage account or a
Right.
tax-free Roth, in our opinion. So
Yeah, absolutely. You've got those three different funnels in it, and it makes a big difference putting the right assets in the right place, whether you're talking about time horizons or tax funnels,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And so I think, do you have a one bucket retirement system? We meet with a lot of people week in and week out. And when we analyze their situation, a lot of them either have no bucket plan system or they just, everything's in one bucket. They kind of have all their eggs in one basket out there in that later bucket, which for us is that growth strategy, that long term. You don't need to touch that money for probably 10 years so we can be patient. We can ride out volatility, knowing that over long stretches of time, that portfolio is probably going to be substantially higher
Right.
in 10 years than it is today.
And kind of tying back to what we talked about in the early part of this video, the reason we see that is because people are still in that accumulation phase and they haven't had someone kind of talk to them about how they need to shift gears, right?
Shifting that mindset. So true. And so, how much risk should you have? That's another great question. For some people we meet, they're on the opposite end of the spectrum. They're so conservative that there's risk in not taking on enough risk, that they have a high probability of running out of money because they need some growth in their portfolio. But they're so risk adverse, they're not willing to put any really in the market to try to get growth. And then we kind of coach them through and we look, well, gosh, around 77, 78 years old,
right?
With this kind of portfolio, you're going to run out of money.
Yeah.
And that obviously doesn't sit well with them. And then we start having conversations about this is where the bucket plan system can come in and save the day.
Right.
And we're taking a portion of your nest egg and we're moving it out to that later bucket strategy so we can have some long-term growth for the later years in your retirement so you don't run out of money.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of times with the individuals that come in and they have that conservative mindset, they've had that because over the years they've been able to, outpace inflation during that accumulation phase, and that makes them feel comfortable not having to ride the waves of the market, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But then again, once you get into retirement and you start to withdraw money, well, you're not keeping up with inflation because of those withdrawals are depleting your assets.
Yeah.
And that's where they end up running out of money in the 70s, 80s, whatever it may be.
Yeah, being too conservative and then not timing Social Security correctly, those two can be disastrous. So that's where, again, having a well laid out financial plan and understanding the logic behind it too. We met with a lovely lady last week. She came in. We did a portfolio analysis on her investment. She's been retired for a little over a year now. And, she was in that accumulation mode. And then as she got into retirement, she just hasn't changed, her 401k allocations. We'll put this up on YouTube as well for those watching it. But her portfolio came in with a risk score of a 72. And she had various retirement accounts, one at a different investment firm and some in her 401k, but combined, all those accounts were invested pretty aggressively. And then we stress tested her portfolio in nitrogen. And we said, if we go through another financial crisis situation in the future and you don't make any changes to your current portfolio, you would lose over 51%. For her, she had about $1.5 million, a little over $1.5 million. She's going to lose over 750,000 of that. And at the same time, she's taking income.
Right. And her eyes got big when she recognized that. It's like, oh, that would not be an acceptable outcome.
Right. And, everyone thinks, well, the government will come in and save the day and just print money. But, we're almost $40 trillion in debt. How much, money printing and saving and backstopping can happen. It gets a little harder, in my opinion, every time we have a crisis.
Right. And I think even if the government were to come in and do something along those lines, you're still going to have a period of time where the market's down. Yep. You're having to draw out assets, and the sequence of return risk is a very real thing. When you get into a situation like that, are we going to be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years for that market to recover? And how does that affect your portfolio while you're withdrawing assets?
Yeah. And I guarantee that ride down, in the financial crisis, that was about an 18-month drawdown. Yep. There's a lot of emotion and a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety on that wild roller coaster ride. And for a lot of people, back in '08, they tapped out at one point and they went to all cash,
Yep.
After losing 30, 40, 50% of their nest egg and may never have gotten back into the market. And,
Right. Well, and there's a lot of people
sabotage their own.
end up going back to work and things like that because the emotions are such a real thing. You don't want to risk your nest egg, but you still have to generate more income. And it can really alter the prime years of your retirement, right?
Yeah. And who wants to go through retirement stressing about the market?
yeah.
Is it up? Is it down? Who's in office? Who's in Congress? Gosh. It just miserable way to go through retirement, watching is the market up or down and basing your lifestyle around, that emotional roller coaster.
Yeah. And when you understand that you don't have to do that, you can obtain your financial goals and have the security if you have a plan.
Yeah. And so with this particular person that came into our office, we talked about her current risk, and we, like you said, her eyes about rolled in the back of her head when we showed her how much she could potentially lose in a market crisis. We also said, gosh, in retirement, you're not on that freeway anymore. We're in more of a residential area, and we're going to put this up on the screen too. And think about, would you take your car and drive through a neighborhood with, houses and kids and people out walking and dogs running around the neighborhood? Would you drive 70, 75 miles an hour and feel comfortable?
I hope not.
Yeah. And for most, you're not 35, 40 years old with a long time horizon of working where we consider those people on the freeway, and they can drive 70, 75 miles an hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're in a neighborhood and driving that fast, you don't have time to react, pivot, stop, and that's when crashes really hurt and can destroy a retirement. So again, it's about shifting that mindset. And this is where having a well laid out plan that we, base ours off the bucket plan system, but then we can quantify the risk using nitrogen and say, this is how much risk you're taking on in your soon bucket. You scored on your volatility tolerance analysis that we give all of our clients, a conservative score for your soon bucket money. We can quantify that and show them exactly what their risk number is and stress test it. And are you okay with that kind of portfolio?
Right.
And we can do the same thing with their later bucket, which again tends to be that growth oriented bucket. But, I think our clients love knowing exactly how much risk they're taking on, why they're taking on that risk, and why they're invested in a certain portfolio.
Yeah. And then just, once they go through the process, understanding why it is they can sleep well at night, no matter what the market's doing. To your point, no matter who's in office, what laws get passed, taxes go up, they go down, whatever the case may be. We put our clients in a position to succeed from day one.
Yeah. All right. So we've done several episodes on just the bucket plan itself. Right. So go back and check out some of those earlier episodes about the bucket plan. If you've never heard of it, the bucket plan system is not the bucket list, which I know a lot of people have talked about having a bucket list in retirement, but the bucket plan is based off Jason Smith's, best-selling book, award-winning
book. Get it
book
on Amazon. And,
yeah. We'll give you a free complimentary version if you just jump on our website. So
absolutely.
Again, we've talked with a lot of people and we hear this quite often. Well, my financial advisor says we should be okay. I've heard that so many times this year in 2025. You should be okay. Oh, yeah. And that's the end of their financial planning is, well, we kind of ran a Monte Carlo and you should be fine. Well, I don't know about you. That doesn't instill a lot of confidence in me. I wouldn't have a confidence in working with an advisor. That was their plan.
And it's basically just saying, just ride it out. Ride the wave and you'll be okay. And to be honest, like a lot of times the clients that are hearing that, they might have $1.5 million, $2 million, something like that. And they're probably not going to run out of money. But do you want to do it by riding the wave and then ending up with, $500,000 less than you might have had? Yeah. Or whatever the case may be, right? Like those are not exact numbers, but
they're just not optimizing.
No, not at all, right? So, have a plan that's going to optimize your assets and give you the best chance to not only enjoy retirement, but possibly leave something for your kids and for your grandkids, right?
That's so true. So now's your chance, right? If you don't know how much risk you're taking on in your current portfolio, your advisor kind of dodges those questions, or maybe you're a do-it-yourselfer and you just want to know how much risk you're taking on in an easily understandable way.
Right.
Just reach out to us. If you want to know how much risk you need to have in your portfolio, this is where having a plan and knowing how much risk we need to take on in each bucket so that we don't outlive our money. That's so important. I think it gives people a lot of confidence to have fun in retirement. And if you want a clear and easy way to understand your financial plan, and how your life savings are invested, reach out to us. So you can click the link below in the show notes down there. We'll have a link that will take you to our website where you can book a completely free, no obligation phone call with us, and we'll have a great conversation. Well, if you jump on the phone with us, we'll send you a copy of Jason Smith's free book, The Bucket Plan, and it's a great read. And the other way to get on our calendar is just to go to our website. It's EW Advisors, EW for Evergreen Wealth.
Right.
So EWadvisors.com. Click on that calendar link and find a date and time that works best for you, and we'll have a great conversation. And again, get that risk analysis and understand what you own and why you own it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up episode 10. Wow, we're in double digits. That went fast. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave some comments and help us reach a wider audience. We appreciate that. And until next time, thank you for watching.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Retirement Planning Podcast. We hope we inspired you to make changes so you can live your best life. If you want to find out more about what we do, or you want to have a holistic wealth and health financial plan, please visit our website. Please subscribe to the podcast and share it widely with your friends and family. Financial planning and advisory services are offered through Prosperity Capital Advisors. PCA is an SEC registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in the state of Ohio. Evergreen Wealth Advisors and PCA are separate non-affiliated entities. PCA does not provide tax or legal advice. Insurance offered through Evergreen Wealth Advisors are not affiliated with PCA. Information received from this podcast should not be viewed as individual investment advice. Product discussions and illustrations are hypothetical in nature and will vary based on many factors, including but not limited to age, health, product, insurance carrier, and product design. You should consult the insurance carrier website and policy for detailed information pertaining to the registration status of PCA. Please contact the firm or refer to the Investment Advisor Public Discourse website disclosure statement as set forth on Form ADV from PCA using the contact information herein. Please read the discourse statement carefully before you invest or send money.